Well, white spaces are essentially gaps in radio spectrum. They're portions of unused spectrum, and they lie between portions of spectrum which is used by a license holder, either at different times of the day, different times of the day, or in different geographical locations. So not all spectrum is used in all places at all times, and white spaces are those unused portions. And that's a technical challenge that has been discussed, over several years with various broadcasters, industry people, policymakers, regulators, and so on. And the solution that's been settled on, pretty much settled on actually, is that a database will be used. So each regulator will have a database, and each white space device will have to consult the database, and the database will tell it what frequencies it's allowed to use, what transmission power levels it's allowed to transmit at, and so on. Now the details of that will vary, and do vary, from one country to another, because different regulators have got slightly different flavours of rules that they want to apply there. But in principle, that's how white spaces are going to be accessed. Well, the US has taken the lead in making white spaces available. In fact, their regulator, the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, has already got to the point where regulation is in place to allow commercial use of white spaces. It's taken some time to get there, because a key consideration is that when someone wants to use white spaces for any application, it's been very important to make sure that those transmissions don't interfere with the current transmissions of license holders such as television broadcasters or wireless microphone users and people like that. The UK government, the UK regulator Ofcom, is closely following, and they expect to have regulations in place, full regulations in place for the commercial use of white space around about this time next year, Q4 of 2014. Well, the use cases and the applications for white space are potentially, huge. It depends on your imagination, really. Our first focus was on rural broadband, and rural broadband is still very much a potential use case for those parts of the country, those parts of the geographical area which are difficult to reach or very expensive to reach by optical fibre techniques and other types of techniques. And that's also very applicable to developing countries where the infrastructure, the telecommunications infrastructure isn't in place, doesn't currently exist, and white spaces can potentially be a very useful, very effective and cost-effective way of hooking up and connecting people who otherwise don't have internet access. It's estimated there are some 600 million people in Africa alone who do not have internet access at the moment. So white spaces probably won't solve all of that, but white spaces has got the potential to at least contribute significantly to that problem. And then there are other applications as well. The various urban applications, the smart city, any kind of application where you need to communicate from, say, for example, a pollution sensor in a smart city, or an electricity meter for a smart metering type of application, or a CCTV camera, any kind of sensor or device that you need that needs to communicate with either amongst themselves or to a centralized location, potentially could be using white space. Well, in developing countries, as I mentioned, the key thing about developing countries is that the telecommunications infrastructure very often doesn't exist. You can have whole towns and villages which don't have internet connectivity, and there are several projects, several trial projects and pilot projects underway at the moment in various parts of Africa. One of which we are helping in Kenya with Microsoft as part of their For Africa program. And the idea there is that actually we've seen schools and health clinics being hooked up and villages being hooked up and basically given internet connectivity where none existed before. And this is helping people to make use of the internet, make use of all the various things that you can. It saves, rather than having to travel for a whole day or half a day to a health clinic, you have information at your fingertips essentially. On the one hand, giving internet access in developing countries is one thing, but people have to have affordable devices as well in order to do that. So one of the things that's being trialled actually in the pilot in Kenya and various other places is that there is a kind of central point that people in the village will come to get their internet access. Not everyone can afford devices, at least not initially. It might take some years before people are able to afford those devices. So they'll come to a central point, a hut or a building of some sort to gain access to the internet. And that will be looked after. That's looked after by an agent, if you like. One of the village, people who's perhaps volunteered or maybe gets paid some kind of compensation for basically looking after this and allowing, keeping the thing running and allowing people to access the thing. The other issue with devices, though, apart from the affordability of devices, people also have to be able to charge up their devices, and for a lot of those communities, electrical power is a problem. A lot of them don't have electrical power, and so charging up your device once a day or twice every 24 hours or every 48 hours or something like that is very difficult as well. So those central huts or little buildings where you get internet access can also act as charging stations, if you like, charging points where people can come with devices to charge them up. So there's a number of issues there that go beyond just providing internet access. There's a few other things that have to be provided as well in order to make the whole thing workable.